let's make a start then. So nice and gently as you start off, as always, especially if you're watching this first thing in the morning, but at any time, just go nice and easy. Take a few moments to just focus your attention on your standing posture. Not trying to do anything spectacular in terms of changing, but just aware of how it feels to stand with the weight of your body down in your feet as much as possible. Feet are hip width apart, directly below your hips, not too close together. Just a little bit soft in hips, belly, shoulders. Bring your attention to this center part of your body between hips and pelvis and waist. And begin to turn there. So it's this movement. It's not my arms moving independently. It's the turning in the center. As soon as I let my hands drop down, they follow with everything that's working up through the body, of course. Just building the movement up slowly, giving your body time to settle, aware of any areas of stiffness or tightness, which hopefully will gradually disperse and dissolve through the course of the movements. Gradually pick up the pace. This is a good exercise to begin with. It's a good exercise to start the day with. The time of year, of course, where people start to emerge from the summer and start to think about routines and getting back into things like exercise and so on, meditation. If you're new to this, or if you've had a little break from a regular practice, put it up slowly. Don't be in a hurry. My recommendation to people is always to do not too much, I would say. I was going to say little, but perhaps little is the wrong way of describing it. If you set out to do maybe half an hour every day, then you have a day when you only do 25 minutes. You'll come away from that feeling a little bit peeved with yourself. Whereas if you set out to do 5 minutes and do 10 minutes, you feel much better about it. And particularly for people unfamiliar with these practices, the best thing to do is to pick 1 or 2 exercises and just do those for a few minutes. And this is a good one to begin with because it's very simple. It doesn't take up a lot of room. It's also one way you can start to get quite a lot of feedback from your body about movement and posture, changes that you begin to make in posture over a period of time can have a very direct effect on this exercise. So we want a posture that gives us a chance to release some of the tightness and stiffness in the body, which gives us a certain amount of extra space for movement. So finding a way to put yourself in line with the pull of gravity so that your weight is drawn down into your legs and your feet, not forwards or backwards. And we'll look at this more closely, but a slight softening in the knees. Try and have your weight a little bit forwards in the feet, which will give you a slight feeling of being tilted forwards. And the response to that should be just to allow your hips to drop back, almost like you're just resting yourself on the edge of a table or something like that, so that knees are roughly in line with the balls of your feet, too far forwards. But as your hips drop back, they're more in line with your ankles, and a feeling lower back, hips, buttocks, as though they're slightly overhanging. This will make a lot of effort required in the thigh muscles, so it's not unusual for the thigh muscles to start to ache. And it takes a while to build up those muscles. Don't overlook the physical conditioning that's very much a part of the ongoing practice of Tai Chi and Qigong. If you find that these muscles really start to stiffen up and shake, then just break off, give yourself a little shake and a little rest. Until eventually this posture becomes more comfortable, more achievable for you. And it's always associated with a sense of quietening in your attention. The very act of bringing your attention to your body, to the intricacies of posture and movement, is one that will help your thoughts to settle, your mind to calm. It's a very elusive quality, of course. We often drift away, so our thoughts will bounce off and disappear. When we realize that's happened, it's just a case of very gently bringing them back to a physical awareness. So the details of posture really have two functions. One is, of course, to help us improve our posture, but the other is to provide a focus of attention. And we get used to that process of bringing our attention in. And so we have these moments in the practice and increasingly during our daily lives where we just sort of touch base. Everything settles just for a moment. That's a very valuable attribute. You may feel your body settling into a nice steady rhythm. That rhythm is an interesting element because particularly when we're going faster, we can become aware of that. It's true in the slower exercise, absolutely harder. And our bodies begin to resonate to that rhythm. So we start to feel a connection between hips and shoulders, maybe down to your feet as well. An increasing sense of your whole body working as one unit, one thing, rather than this feeling we sometimes have of being slightly scatty with a leg down there and an arm up there. And once again, along with that comes this sense of a unification, if you like, of mind and body. These moments where our thoughts are less scattered as well. And this makes an important contribution to our well-being. In many ways, I think we get more out of this art if we're approaching it as a moving meditation rather than an exercise. You will get plenty of exercise with Tai Chi, but we don't want to overlook that aspect of the mind, the physical aspect of that which affects our nervous system. Variation on this is just raise your arms a little, no higher than your shoulders, but notice my elbows are hanging down. And then just open your arms out a little bit, opening the chest and upper back, hands are in front of your shoulders. So you're not pulling your arms behind your shoulders, tightening the chest as a consequence. Breathing coming nice and easily and smoothly. Just natural breathing, whatever suits your body. We try and impose a breathing method or breathing pattern too soon, then we can create tension. And then just drop your hands down again. Give your legs a shake. Just stand in and very slowly raise your shoulders, feel the weight of your arms on your shoulders, and then let them drop a bit closer. So lift up and drop down. And notice how you drop your shoulders into your ribs. There's a structure within your body, ribs and spine and so on, that stops your arms from dropping all the way down, of course. And so we realize that we don't actually need that tightness, that stiffness, just to maintain our shape. And then same thing with your hips. Just bend your knees a little bit, then push up, and again just drop down. Don't worry if you feel you have to take a step. What we're looking at the moment again is this feeling that when we release tension and stiffness in the body, we drop into something. There's a structure, a strength within the body that continues to support us. You might even want to come up on your heels and drop down there, feel a little bit of a vibration going through your back. If you find that you wobble around a bit too much to that, just rest your hand on a wall or a table, chair. More time. So we begin to realize that we're okay at letting go tightness and stiffness. That again, there's this inner structure that will support us. So keeping that in mind, just rocking your weight forwards and backwards. Now, if I go too far, you'll see here my heels are coming up, and eventually have to take a step. So moderate the movement a little bit if that's happening, until you feel you've just got that little bit of movement, swaying, your body swaying, pivoting from your ankles, feeling the movement in the soles of your feet, and eventually just letting your body come to rest in a sort of point of equilibrium. So you will have an idea about where that might be. That's fine. But if this is a discovery, shall we say, that we make. And just coming to rest, ideally, as I said before, with your weight a little bit forwards, hips just sinking back. Once again, feeling the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders, and perhaps beginning to get a sense for this inner strength, this inner structure, the skeleton and the surrounding area, giving the support to the body and encouraging us to release some of the tightness and stiffness. We don't look for stiff muscles. Muscles are engaged, of course. It's not that they stop working. But the effort of maintaining the body's shape, moving around, maintaining our posture, starts to get spread more evenly through the body. This is a good thing to do at the start of a session, at the start of the day, just to remind ourselves of this. And then letting your hips drop back a little bit more, feel your weight dropping down more, and then pushing up, feel your feet pushing into the ground, and then sinking down. Trying to get a feeling that it's okay to let your pelvis drop a little bit. So once again, we're dropping, this time dropping or sitting into the legs, and then we find that the legs will start to push us up again. This is what we call rooting down in Tai Chi. We aim to be able to create this root, a lower center of gravity, giving us greater stability, and again, releasing some of the tightness from the upper part. Now bring your hands around as though you're cradling the ball, and as you push up, with your body expanding, pushing your elbows out, so you are lifting the ball. Turn your hands over, drop your hips, with your shoulders going down, so you're pressing the ball down. Now you're moving in water. So this is the exercise rooting down. One that we always start with. Rooting down is the first key physical principle we work with in Tai Chi and Qigong. Creating a posture that again allows for an increase of space within the body for movement. Both the, if you like, the mechanical movement of muscles and joints and tendons and ligaments. More subtle mechanics of the movements of the fascia and the soft tissue, extending and contracting. And ultimately a sense of the movement itself, the flow, the energy. And just keep your attention gently focused in your body by noticing changes, particularly in your upper body. Perhaps maybe here, as your arms come up, maybe an extension in the side of your body, followed by a contraction, for instance. In time, you'll learn to work out which of those movements are useful to you, which old habits you might want to try and bypass, developing new habits, healthier habits. And gradually the movement, the flow begins to balance and harmonize. And hopefully some of that tightness, some of that stiffness in our body that was restricting the flow just begins to dissolve. So rooting down, very important principle, goes hand in hand with that alignment of our body, trying to maintain an alignment with the pull of gravity so we're not straining against it. Now this time, same action in your legs and hips, but your hands come out, pushing up, out to the sides here, just slightly in front of your shoulders. This is the wild goose. So we have this image of the bird in flight, and we use a great deal of imagery in Tai Chi. It's one of the ways that we engage body and mind together, because our bodies do respond frequently to different images, ideas. So if the image of the bird in flight conveys a quality of smoothness, grace perhaps, this becomes part of our intention. And all of these movements are intentional in one way or another, either with a deliberate thought or slightly more abstract by using the images or ideas. Any of these that don't work for you can just be comfortably put to one side. They may come to mean something, but if an image doesn't work for you, don't go chasing after it. Bring your attention back to some other aspect of the movement. This time, another variation, letting your hands drop down, cross in front of your belly, pushing up, elbows going out, drawing your fingers around a nice smooth circle. This is parting the clouds. Think of those moments on a grey, cloudy day when the sun shines through, and that feeling of expansiveness that we can get when that happens. So an element in this movement that I think is important. We're not stretching, not straining for the movement. Just let your arms go to whatever point is comfortable. And in general, in these movements, trying to feel that we could have moved a little bit further, going to 80% of the movement. And that way we retain the space in the body. These are all key fundamental principles, aspects of the movements that we constantly work on in Tai Chi. Even after over 40 years of practice, I still go through these movements in the mornings to remind myself of all these qualities, hopefully before I start the day too quickly. Now, go back to the first of these exercises and build these three into a little sequence. So rooting down. Take your time with this, don't rush to change over. And then turning your hands out and the wild goose. And then parting the clouds. Just noticing the flow, the change from one movement to another. Those subtle changes can take place within your body, particularly your upper body again. Again, some of you may have an idea of what those changes can be. But to begin with, it's really a process of observation. But when you do get a sense of what each movement feels like, that too builds into your intention. So increasingly, the changes and the impetus for the movements comes from deeper within your body, not ignoring the external aspect of the movements, but recognizing that they are an expression of what's happening in deeper within mind and body. There are three basic aspects that we're working with, sometimes referred to as the three jewels or the three treasures. One is obviously the body and the mechanical aspects of the movement. Another, as I've already said, is aspects of our mind. And the third is the movement itself, the flow, the energy. And we want the interactions between these three treasures to be smooth and harmonious. We choose to emphasize one over the other at times, but ultimately they all work together as one unit. And last time with this little sequence, and then let your hands drop down again, feel the weight of your arms, and this time when you push up, focusing on one side, feeling the expansion there. At the top of the movement, just gently wind your arm around and sink down like you're plucking something off the tree. Change sides, don't rush to change over. This is called Dragon Plucks the Stars from the Sky. A little bit closer, my hand would disappear, but you perhaps see more of what's going on within the body. It's like people who are more used to this for a slightly stronger quality to the movement. Imagine you're standing on one end of an elastic band, and what you're trying to do is to gently stretch that elastic band out and then to let it contract slowly. So again, an image that can help to not just connect the body, but to gradually make those connections stronger, more reliable. So the same exercise can begin to feel quite different at times as our understanding grows and our ability to make use of intention grows. One more time. And then just letting your hands drop down, stand for a moment. Once again, just trying to let your thoughts settle in your body. Give yourself a little shake. So that process of settling, and it's one that we often associate with the contracting stage of the movements, but ideally would keep it all the way through. Practice, of course, we do lose that. But what it starts to give us is a sense that in conjunction with the movement, there's also a quality of stillness and a quality of calmness, particularly in terms of our minds. And it's that enables us to keep a focus of attention and to make skillful use of our intentions as well. So all of these things should work together like the three treasures. I sometimes describe them as being like the three legs of a tripod. They're all important. They're all things that we gradually cultivate through the movements themselves. So when we align ourselves with the pull of gravity, we allow that movement, that energy of gravity working down through the body to be unimpeded. And then in the other direction, the natural response of our body and the ground beneath us is an upward movement. So when we stand like this, you see my knees are locked back, everything is tight. Feel my weight going up. I'm straining in the upper part of the body, and there isn't a free sense of movement. When I do this, again, hips and buttocks overhanging, there's a much smoother sense of a downward movement, and gradually a sense of an upward movement. And this is one of the most important kinetic energies that we work with in Tai Chi. There's others as well, but this basic cycle, gravity is always with us, and our bodies are always producing an upward movement in response to that. It's like if you get a ball or a block of wood and you push it down into water, as soon as you start to push it down, you will feel the pressure of the water pushing the ball up. The same kind of thing happens within our body. The push up is very subtle, but gradually with the tension, you'll become aware of it. So the next two exercises maintain that stance. We don't bend the knees a great deal, but we do allow them to drop. And once again, bringing your attention to the middle part of your body. So bring your hands to this position, to the sides of your hips, and then raise them up. They come in front a little bit and push up. And again, you see here, they're a little bit in front of my body, as though there's a low ceiling there. You're just gently pushing up into it. And then back down, bringing your hands and your attention back to the center part of your body. And alternate that with a similar movement. You raise up, drop your elbows down, push out. And again, hands slightly in front of your body, not pulled back, but tighten upper back and chest. And then repeating that, pushing up, with your back lengthening a little bit. And down. Pushing out a broadening quality across your back. Remembering the faster exercise at the front, that sense of rhythm. Let's see if you can allow your body to settle into a nice steady rhythm, not speeding up. And that can particularly happen on that contracting stage that brings your hands back to your hips. We often try and shortcut it, but give yourself time to just let your hands come back, rest there just for a moment, and then pushing up, coming back, and again, just letting your hands come into position and pushing out. This time, add in two movements with that focus of attention in the center of your body. So you bring your hands back down, aware of that, the feelings in hips, bellies, waist. And as you push out, just turn gently, not straining in your back. Remember that expansive quality. Come back. And then the other direction. Coming back, bringing your attention back to the center part of your body, and then pushing out. This is an exercise that helps to develop the very useful habit of bringing your attention into your body in a very specific way. That center part of your body between hips and waist is like the hub of a wheel. When we move there, something changes there, it can affect the whole body, both down into our feet as well as up into our arms. And it becomes a strong focus for our attention. So it's almost like it becomes the point of stillness within the body. Certainly from there down into the ground is where we would want our attention to come in those moments when things can get a bit hectic and frantic. It's called pushing in 4 directions. And when we want to make patterns, movements, directions with our arms and our hands, we try to do that from that perspective of the center part of the body. And in time, that becomes more accessible to us. It's quite possible that, as well as changes in muscles and tendons and ligaments, we're also stimulating changes in the nervous system, making that return to our center a smoother journey. Now, this time, bring your hands in, let them drop down. And again, with a feeling of expansion, particularly from the center part of your body, on one side, pushing your arm out, elbow slightly bent, till your hand comes in line with your nose, with the center line of your body, and straight down. Imagine standing beneath a stone archway like you might find in a church door, and just sliding the palm of your hand around that. So a very slight pressure outwards. It's called circling palms. Now this time, if it's comfortable for you, you can just add a little turn in. You find that that's causing your shoulders or your hips to tighten up, and just stay with the first stage of the movement. Changing sides. Notice any difference between one side and another? It's quite common to find that. And again, adding the turn. One more time. And once again, stand. So this area is often described as being like the hub of a wheel. And if you think of a bicycle wheel and the hub turns, all the spokes move with it. We don't. So if we want to change direction with our arms, create a pattern with our arms, and even with our feet too, for those of you who have been doing this for some time, then which we learn to bring our attention into the center and move from that. When we use the term being centered in Tai Chi, it's not a metaphor, it's an actual physical reality. It also affects the vertical movements in our body. These were horizontal movements, but if I stand here and tilt my pelvis forwards, push my hips back, you see my head goes forwards. If I reverse that, pulling my hips through and pushing them forwards, my head goes back. And you can try this very gently. And we're going to use this for the next 2 exercises. They're quite strong exercises. Be careful with your knees and with your back. But for the moment, just recognizing the influence of the center of your body, pelvis, hips. And as you do this, as your hips go back, your head goes forwards, there's a gentle extension through your spine that contracts, and then here's another extension. I'm sort of over doing this quite big at the moment. This time, as you tilt forward, just sink down a bit more, so your knees will bend a little bit more, and then let your hips drop. And I'm going to come closer so you can see what's happening here. Gravity draws my hips down, and that brings my head up. So gravity helps to bring my head upwards and into line, reducing the need for straining in back and shoulders. And this time, bringing our arms back into the movement as you push up, hands coming up, and then as your shoulders go forwards and you sink down, that pushes the hands forwards. This is rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. On the side, you can see there's a circular quality to the movement of the arms. It is so characteristic of all of these exercises. Sinking down, pushing your hips back. Let your arms drop down, let your hips drop down, and then push up. Very gently, just be aware that this is a strong exercise for the back. Move as far as you're comfortable. Remember that principle of going to 80% of the full movement. Do one more of these. This time, bring the hands in front of your belly, palm down, and just turn from side to side again. Notice your arms moving with you. Combining now the horizontal and the vertical rotations in the center. You turn, push your hips back, pushes your hands forward. You turn, you swing your hips across, come back upright, and back to the center. And then reverse the movement. This is called polishing the table. Draw your arms around in a nice smooth circle. Again, not moving too far. Again, just notice what's happening in my hips. Try not to stiffen up in your shoulders. Do one more in each direction. Coming back to the standing position, see if you can allow gravity to work on your hips. So allowing gravity to draw your head and shoulders up rather than feeling you have to strain against gravity, simply to remain upright. And with that feeling of dropping down into that inner quality of stronger, more supportive quality. Maybe just take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. And shake out again. Obviously, there's a lot of physical adjustment that needs to take place in the body to do this, but also a kind of mental adjustment. We're conditioned to constantly strain, and it can feel very strange to reverse that. It can feel very threatening to reverse that. But again, remember those initial exercises where we drop into something. There is this quality that we call inner strength in Tai Chi. And although, I mean, in a way that's quite an advanced concept, but it's not at this stage, it's not complicated. We're vertebrates with a skeleton to support us from inside. So in many ways, it's a very natural thing to do. Now we're going to change the stance. Keep the width of your step. Turn one foot out and step forward with the other foot, keeping the width. You can still see the space between my legs here. Roughly square. So it's like you're standing on the diagonal corners of a square, maybe a little bit longer again for people with a bit more experience. And then just beginning to transfer your weight. Give yourself a moment in each leg to feel that sinking of your weight and to feel the push that comes from your leg when you do that. So it's not just forwards and backwards. There's just that moment of settling, almost like you're in the sea waiting for the wave to pick you up. And again, you can imagine doing this in water. To start off with, we said that the upper body just sits on the hips, quite passive. But when we use that image of moving through water, or when we feel as though the air around us is maybe thicker than normal, another image that's sometimes used, then we realise that the upper body isn't passive, that if I were to move forwards and do nothing in my upper body, the pressure of the water would push my shoulders back and so on. So there are very subtle changes that start to take place. They're not deliberate, conscious changes in the sense that we think, oh, I've got to do this or do that, but they come out of the image and they're intentional in that sense. And this helps to build that quality of inner strength. It also helps to build flow of the movement, because when we move in water, we quite naturally begin to soften in joints, muscles. So we flow through the resistance of water. This is a key exercise, because now we're learning to move forwards and backwards and maintain these qualities of being centered, being rooted, being in line. It's also very good for conditioning the legs, very good for stability and mobility, this exercise. And if you have problems with, say, your knees or your hips, make sure you're not stiffening them up. It will make the muscles work harder, but that's not a bad thing, but don't overdo it. And move your weight into your back foot, and as you do, just raise your front toes a little bit. More of your weight now going down through the front foot, through the back foot. Go forward, my front foot slightly turned out. Push your back knee forward so your heel comes up. When you do this, notice whether you're straining in the upper part of the body. It's a very common habit. Just remind yourself that actually both of these actions, heel and toes, are about the lower part of the body. You don't need to engage your shoulders and your back any more than you already are to maintain your alignment. So you keep that alignment now more over one leg until eventually you're able to just slowly draw one foot in. When you go out, push your front foot, the heel goes down first, then the toes. Gently press the foot into the floor and move your weight. Same thing here, except that what you're going to do is you're going to put the ball of your foot down. To begin with, just rest the toes of the empty foot, as we would call it, on the floor. Use that moment to again be aware of your posture and your root. And what you may find is you're able to just raise the leg a little bit, keeping your pelvis level, keeping your body in line with the pull of gravity. If you find that you wobble around too much doing that, either just put the toes down, or you could do this exercise again with a little bit of support. And I would recommend this to all of you, even if you think you know this exercise. It can be quite interesting how our body responds to that to that little bit of extra support. So try that on the other side. Keeping the width of your step. First of all, just what we would call in Tai Chi, the fixed step version, keeping your toes and your heel on the floor. Take your time, build it up in stages. Each stage of this movement is important. Don't rush into the stepping. And then raising toes and heel. Giving yourself that moment here again to settle. So again, there's that little moment of stillness, settling in your mind as well as in your body. Stepping in, toes down to begin with. This helps to give you, again, that space to check your posture. We often find that maybe we're leaning over or we're stiffening up. And if it feels okay, you can raise your knee. Try not to think in terms of balancing when you do this. We align our bodies with the pull of gravity. We allow our center of gravity to drop, our hips to develop that overhanging feeling. And when we do that, we find that we become stable. When we're stable, we don't need to balance. Balance has a different aspect in Tai Chi. Now, take a few steps out. Move forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the space. Take your time, planting the foot. And then changing direction, trying to maintain as much as you can those qualities of being rooted, of being aligned, of having a quality of stillness that we found in the earlier movements at times, particularly the basic standing posture, but also recognizing that that's an elusive quality. But don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen too often. We all have that experience. And again, if it helps, and even if you don't think you need it, you can do that walking. I've got my hand on the wall here, just for that little bit of extra support, security. And again, you may find that even if you thought you could do the walking, when you do this, maybe there was some areas of the body that you were tightening up in that you didn't. Now, have your right foot forward. I want you to mirror my movement. Same stance as before. We call this the bow stance. Start with your weight in your back foot, hands down by your sides again. Imagine you moving in water. I move my weight forwards, and the pressure of the water stops my arms from moving for a moment, and then they flow through. And then same thing going back. This is called fisherman castanet. It has this lovely wave-like flow through the body, both up into your upper body and out through your arms. Trying as you do this to maintain that awareness of what's happening in your feet, not getting caught up totally in what's happening in your arms. We're moving our weight forwards and backwards. We're facing forwards. Don't worry if there's a little angle there. And as a consequence, our arms are moving forwards and backwards. It's called fisherman castanet. Now just varying this by turning in the center. As you come back, turn to your left towards the back foot. And now you're drawing your arms through in the same way, except they're going across your body. And just notice that little swing upwards and how that feels in your sides and your back. And this time, just let them swing up a little bit further. And as you go back, you drop down, coming across your hip and then up and back, making up a sort of sideways figure of 8 or something resembling the infinity sign used in physics and mathematics. And if you can use either of those images, imagine the shape in front of you that your body can just flow into. Moving your weight, turning your center, feeling the shoulders moving, your arms following the shoulders. Whole body committed to one movement, body and mind working together. And shake out. Now, have your left foot forward to start the same way, weight in your back foot, fisherman cast. Notice any stiffening in your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, and your fingers. Imagine moving through. You can still be aware of that support from within your body. See to what degree you're able to sustain that. Notice the changes in back, sides, and the front of your body as your arms swing through, patterns of expansion and contraction. And then this time, turning. And when we go forwards, your arms swing up a little bit, feel that expansion in that front side of your body as you go back. The right side, the rear side. And again, we learn to build these movements from within. So our intention here is to expand more in the front of the body. And that pushes our arms up when we go back and we turn. And the intention is to expand more in the back of the body, like a wave coming up underneath our arms. It gives us the figure of 8 movement combination with the turning in the center. Transfer of weight. Straining in back, or shoulders, or arms. This time, when you go back again, turn your front foot out a little bit. As you go forwards and sink into the front leg and your body expands, push your back knee forward, bring the foot in, unless you're going backwards, in which case do it in reverse. Same thing here. Just aware of your posture as you do this, not overextending your arms. And so maybe just able to raise your knee. Again, don't feel you have to do that. This is not a competition, remember. In time, you'll find that your stability improves. If you get used to the movements, regular practice. I'm going to do one more going forward, otherwise I'm going to bump into the camera. So now I feed, put back, I plant it down. One more time. And again, that's an exercise that you can adapt. If you do feel it, you're a little bit shaky, or if you want to investigate more what's going on within the body, which I would always recommend, stand with your back to a wall. Do it from side to side. Just my feet are slightly turned out, settling in, raising up. And the advantage of this is, of course, what you can do. You know, if you get to here and you feel a bit wobbly, just rest back against the wall. It's fine. So again, you can build confidence in that. Good. So now just rubbing your hands together. An exercise to help loosen up some of the tightness in your muscles. Tapping over your face. And then working up over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And your arm. On the other side. Bring your hands round your back, gently over the lower part of your back, hips, buttocks. Round your hips now. Down the outside of your legs, the inside. Light on your belly. And the upper part of your chest. Okay, now, as I've said several times, all of these qualities that we build do come and go. This last exercise points us at how we come back. It's called Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. So a strong focus on the contracting, returning stage of the movement. So come back into your basic posture. Once again, letting your hips drop back and going down a little bit further. And one of the things you can do with this exercise is just to take note of what brings you back. For me, the image of the mountain is a good image for all of these qualities of, there's a dynamic quality there, there's a stillness, there's a strength, there's a root. But I'm also aware of how gravity is working through my body. I can only go up so far before I start to strain, and so before that happens, I allow gravity to bring me down, and then I build the movement upwards. So the interaction of those two directions quite naturally brings me back to this calmer, more centered quality for a moment. And then my arms following. This is the embrace in the tiger, arms coming around, and then so you're holding the ball against your chest, and then letting your elbows drop with gravity, letting your hips drop. And again, just a moment here to settle in before you begin. Embrace tiger, return to the mountain. So we leave with this strong sense of this posture, the intention and the aspiration to be, to as much as possible during the day, find at least some of those qualities of mind and body that we've discovered during these practices. So the benefit of the session begins to extend out into our day. One more time. And stand. As always, thank you very much for joining in, everybody. Any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll do my best to answer them. But for now, just enjoy the rest of the day.